What's up, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas and the pod at the Palace. It's game day for the Razorbacks Friday night, 8 p.m., a little bit late tip-off against Little Rock. So you got an in-state matchup on SEC Network, so it'll actually be on television and not just streaming there. This is going to be a fun game. I like this matchup. It's going to be an interesting one. The Trojans, they're really well coached under Razorback legend Darrell Walker. This was a projected NCAA tournament team before former Razorback KK Robinson tore up his knee and is out for what looks like it's going to be the season. He's certainly not playing against the Razorbacks. That's impacted this team and maybe their ultimate ceiling, but they're still very much good enough to win their league, I think. They're 3-2 overall on the year. They did have a couple ugly losses early in the season. They got blown out by Winthrop, got beat up on by a good Arkansas State team, pretty bad there, but they've rebounded nicely. They've got double-digit road wins back-to-back against UTSA and then Wednesday night against Tulsa. They rank 181st at KenPom, which is interesting because it's quite a bit lower than actually Lipscomb was and Troy too. But I think that they might be a better team than both of them. And I think that'll probably be reflected by the end of the season. I actually think that, Little Rock's probably going to remind fans quite a bit of Troy when they watch them Friday night, just with some of the things that they do, the makeup of their team. But in saying that, I do think Little Rock has a couple players who are just at a higher talent level, maybe than anybody that Troy had out there. So, and actually those two guys, in fairness, being a former LSU wing, Mwani Wilkinson, not to be confused with Curtis Wilkerson, but it's close, right? But you guys will remember him. I mean, he was there for 4 or 5 years, a role player at LSU. He had some moments against the Razorbacks out there on the wing, big, strong kid, like 6'5", 210 pounds. And then Jonathan Lawson. Is that a familiar name? It should be. Chandler Lawson's brother plays nothing like him. He is a wing, a guard, a bucket getter who was at Memphis for a year. Then he was at Creighton last year. And now he's at Little Rock. And those two guys are kind of the heads of the snake there in the backcourt on the wing. And here's what Chin Coleman, who we got to talk to preview the game, had to say about both of those guys.
Has some knowledge about him, obviously, from being in the league at LSU. He was there for 4 years, and I guess this is like his extra year. So went up against him a bunch at LSU. Always been a good player, always been a good shooter. He's got good size, good physical look to him. He's able to play inside out. He's able to, post up. He's able to get to the rim. And obviously he's a good threat from three. So we got to guard him on all three levels. He's a really good player who has some – he's not going to be fearful of us neither, right? He's played in this league. He understands the SEC. I think he'll be even a little bit extra jacked. But we got to do our job on him. We got to do our job on number 11. He is a really good player, Lawson. Got great size, ability to shoot the ball from three at a high clip and post up and get to the rim. He's got good size, so he's able to shoot over you, over the top of guys who doesn't match his size and his length. So it'll be a good game. I mean, these guys just come off a win over at Tulsa. I'm sure they'll travel here today, get comfortable, practice, and get prepared to play tomorrow.
Yeah, and so it's interesting with those two guys. Like Wilkinson, for example, he was not a very high volume 3-point shooter at LSU, but he always shot it about 40%, like less than 1 attempt per game. But you look at him here at Little Rock, obviously his role's expanded, but he's 8 of 16 from three so far on the year. And then, Jonathan Lawson, 11 of 26. So you got one guy shooting 50% from three, another guy shooting 42% from three. And they have some other threats out there. They're not a very deep team, which is probably a good thing for Arkansas, given their current circumstances. They'll play like 8 guys. They're long, they're athletic, but they're not very tall, and they're not very physically strong, I think is what I would say about them outside of Wilkinson. And then like Jonathan Lawson's got a pretty decent frame on him. But they've got a lot of guys who are out there in like the 165, 170 pound range. Their center is not overly big. So a couple names to know outside of those two. I would say lead guard Isaiah Lewis, pretty nice player. At least he looked good in the game I watched against Tulsa the other night. And then a post player, Ante Bejan. And again, like he's only 6'8", 220 pounds. Adu Thero is 6'8", 220 pounds, but they look very, very different in terms of the ways they're put together. But they run a ton of stuff through this guy. It's interesting. Now, I mentioned how they'll remind you of Troy. And the reason I say that is, kind of their roster makeup from a size and length perspective, but then also just the way they throw a bunch of different looks at you defensively. And it's not just that they'll switch, from man to zone or whatever, and they'll do that. They'll throw several different things at you, but they'll do it in the middle of possession. Like they'll start a possession in zone, and then after a couple passes, they'll match up and go man the rest of the possession. It's weird. It's different. It throws you off a little bit and kind of keeps you out of a rhythm. Saw them doing that a little bit against Tulsa the other night. They'll run, a man-to-man defense during a half court possession, and then they'll switch to a zone for a baseline out of bounds. So it's just little things like that, where they just can, constantly try to like make the opponent stay on their toes, see if they can keep them off balance a little bit. Chin Coleman, he called them helter skelter. And he meant that, like as a compliment in terms of the way they create havoc, by just throwing different things at you and keeping you off balance.
I like what they run. I like their style of play. They're number one in the country in what we call the Olajuwon stat. That's blocks and steals combined. They average 10 steals a game. They cause 17 turnovers a game. They're helter skelter, right? They mix up defenses. They change the rhythm of the game. They keep you off guard. They scatter the court a little bit, and they cause havoc, and that works good in their favor. They run really good stuff on offense. They run some Princeton stuff with this team. They got good pieces, good personnel. Like their team a lot. We respect them, but we don't fear them. But there's a lot of respect for what they do and who they are and how they're playing and winning basketball games.
Yeah. I like that Olajuwon stat. That's a pretty cool little thing to keep up with there. And just to add some context to that, between the blocks and the steals, they currently rank second in the country in block percentage, and they're 41st in the country in steal percentage. Now, who's blocking those shots? That's what's interesting about this. Like, for example, their center, number 21, his block percentage is 5.8. And so he's up there. I don't think he's going to be blocking many shots against the Razorbacks. I don't necessarily see it happening, but where they're getting a lot of them is from those long athletic wings, namely Lawson, and Mwani Wilkinson, two guys that we're talking about there. So if you're thinking about, DJ Wagner and, John L. Davis, those Boogie Flan, those guys get into the hole, they're going to be challenged there around the rim. So they're going to have to go up and finish strong in this one. Let's see, what else do we have here offensively for Little Rock? A couple things to watch with them. They run a lot of flex cuts, so there's going to be a need for really good communication for Arkansas off ball in this one, and whether they're switching some things down there or passing guys off, you're going to have to be calling out screens and being ready to bump cutters and everything like that. So there's that, and then they also run a ton of pinch post action. Like over 50% of their possessions are initiated with a high post entry, like at the elbow, to their big man, number 21. And he's just got options. Like he can turn an attack. He can get into some dribble handoff stuff with their guards. And then he can, set a rescreen with a ball screen. And then he can roll it, or he can flare it out and knock down a three. Like there's just a lot of different options there for him. And so it's going to be a tricky matchup for Arkansas. I'm anxious to see what they do here. Like center on center, like Big Z has no excuse not to eat in this game offensively. He just doesn't. But he really needs to be locked in and focused defensively, because he's going to be challenged in a number of ways. And he's going to have to defend being pulled away from the basket quite a bit there. So I'm anxious to see kind of what they do. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe we see some possessions where you might put Thero on that big man, and then you drop Big Z over to their four man, who's like 6'9", 180 pounds, but he's not that much of a threat offensively. Maybe a guy that you can try to just help off, and Z can hang around under the rim a little bit more, and you can have Thero, handling all those complex actions that they run. That might be a better look for him. I don't know. We'll see what they do. Let's see. I kind of like Arkansas right now. I think in terms of 3-point shooting, they're dangerous, but they don't shoot a ton of them, right? So only 32.1% of Little Rock's threes or total shots come from three. And so that ranks 318th nationally. In fact, Arkansas is actually ranked quite a bit higher than them from that metric, but they're making the ones that they shoot. They're making 40% of their threes on the season. They were 8 of 18 against Tulsa there. And so from the sounds of it, listening to Chin Coleman, at least, it seems like Arkansas is really going to look to run them off of the 3-point line and see if they can kind of finish over the length and the athleticism, the shot blocking that Arkansas has.
We can't allow for them to attempt 25 threes. And our defense has to cut their attempts in half. You're right. They're shooting plus 40%. They got one kid shooting 47%. They got another kid shooting 44%. Their two main guys, I think, are really good three-point shooters. So we have to cut those in half. That means the attempts, the FTAs from three, they can't take 25 threes in our building. That's not going to happen. We're going to try to defend against that and make that be maybe 13 and cut the number of makes down to about 5. And if we do that, that'll play into our favor in terms of being victory.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like if Arkansas holds Little Rock to 5 or fewer threes made in this game, they're probably going to win it going away. I would imagine Little Rock's probably going to need double-digit 3-point makes to really make this a nail biter down the stretch. We'll see. I watched them last night or Wednesday night, I guess it was. They were a 13.5-point underdog at Tulsa, which just to me seemed outrageous. The easiest money I ever made going money line there for Little Rock. They beat the hell out of Tulsa on the road, and they were pretty impressive doing it. It was an ugly first half, and probably a lot of people turned it off after that. I think it was like 25-20, but they really, really got it going in the second half. And it was interesting because 3 guys for Little Rock, it was Lawson, Wilkerson, and then Lewis, the lead guard that I mentioned. They scored every single one of Little Rock's points through the first 25 minutes of the game. And I'm like, is that it? Is that all they got there? Well, then the big man 21 got going and he went nuts late, and they were just going to him, just setting a flex screen for him, getting post-ups for him or entering an elbow and just kind of letting him cook. And he was giving Tulsa a lot of problems. And again, he is a less skilled version of the big man that Lipscomb had, if you remember him. But he was just like a little bit undersized, but he was really active in there, smart basketball player, could do a little bit of everything. It's going to be kind of like the same vibes there. Couple other things about them, then we'll get out of here. They foul like crazy, okay? And they aren't deep. So, like being aggressive and getting free throw attempts for Arkansas, I think is going to be definitely a key. Little Rock ranks 340th out of like 362 teams nationally when it comes to free throw attempts allowed per field goal attempt. So it's like 50.9%. It's like you're almost getting a free throw attempt for every 2 shots you take. It's crazy. They foul 22 times per game. So, like Arkansas is going to need to be aggressive there. We talked about their ability to block shots, and that's because they'll really challenge it. But if you go in there and you go up strong around the rim, they're probably going to foul you, and you're going to be able to get to the stripe. And for an Arkansas team right now that's not overly deep either, it'll be interesting to see that because, like you think about, media timeouts and 30-second timeouts, just any way to give guys breaks and breathers without necessarily having to sub out, getting to the free throw line stops the game. And it allows you, a few minutes there to catch your breath. So the flip side for that will be Arkansas needs to stay out of foul trouble because they might be shorthanded again in the front court. No surprise that there's really no update on Trevor Brazile or Jonas Adu in terms of their status for Friday night. But here's what Coleman had to say anyway.
I'm not sure about that. We haven't got an update for today. I think that's up to our medical staff and Matt and those guys are doing a good job monitoring that. They're trying. I know the kids are chomping at the bit to get back on the basketball court and working really hard and going to their PT meetings and around the clock treatment and therapy with Matt. But in terms of a status report, I don't have that right now at this moment.
And then if you're without them, I wonder if as a staff, have y'all kind of game planned like, a doomsday scenario where if, maybe somebody else gets shaken up in the game or foul trouble. I mean, you almost kind of had that against Pacific, just kind of how y'all will handle that with the, shorter rotation.
Yeah, we talk about it. We prepared for all scenarios. As you saw last game, we had to play small because we had to play a do at the 5 some. Defensively, we had to play a do at the 5, but offensively, pretty much a lot of our parts are interchangeable and positionless. So we're prepared for if we have to do something like that again on Friday. Being prepared is the most important thing. We're not going to be caught off guard if someone gets into foul trouble or if something like that happens, we'll be prepared for it.
Okay. Well, so there you have it. Based on the things I'm hearing, I think maybe they have an outside chance at having Trevin available, or maybe it's a little bit more realistic for Monday. I just know he's been doing some things. It's like he hasn't been completely setting out. And so we'll see. And, he's been playing too. I don't know if they just want to save him up for Illinois or what that's going to look like, but maybe for this game on Friday. And then with Jonas Adu, I just don't know. I'm not entirely sure what's going on that front, how much he's participating, practicing or what, but all I know is Arkansas needs him. And they need him at 100%, and they need that to happen sooner rather than later. I don't anticipate seeing him Friday, but you never know. And if we do, I'll be pleasantly surprised and certainly okay with it. Arkansas's 18-point favorite in this game. I feel like it's about right. I mean, I feel like this is a game that they should win by 20 or so points. But I also know that they could be shorthanded again. And I also know that this team just loves to play with its food right now. That's just kind of what they're doing. They're still learning how to put teams away. And so if I had to lay a prediction on how I think this is going to go, probably like the other home games have gone, in my opinion, which I imagine it'll go, it's kind of a slow bleed where they build up a cushion, Little Rock fights back. They make it interesting for a minute in the second half, and then Arkansas eventually pulls away and wins pretty comfortably. So I think that's what I'm looking at here, but we'll see. And make sure you guys tap in with us afterwards for the Pot at the Palace post-game show. We'll go live shortly after the final horn. It'll be a little bit late, so get your coffee, caffeine, beer, I don't know, whatever it is, but tap in and hop in on the chat. Those are always fun. But I'm going to get out of here for now, and then we'll see you guys tonight. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas and the Pot at the Palace. We'll see you guys later.